Back in a minute.
All right. Good evening, everyone.
Hi.
How are you?
Good evening.
Shalom Aleichem, Eli. Are you back?
Aleichem Shalom. Yes, I'm back.
Looks like it.
Thank you.
Okay. You had a good time?
Yeah, it was very fantastic.
Lovely. Hopefully soon by all of us going to Israel. Oh, so sure. Anyway.
All of us. All of us.
Exactly. Definitely. Okay. Right. Okay. We had a few cancellations tonight. A couple of people can't make it. Maybe they can catch up on the recording. But we're going to try and make some more progress through the Eov Sugya and really try and get today to the response. The Perek Lamed Ches is where Hashem turns around to Eov and says, "Look, this is why it's all happened to you." Or at least he tries to give him a pathway towards understanding. We'll see. Anyway, where do we get up to? That's the question. We did about the Soton. So I think I just have this. I'm not sure whether we got up to. Did we do B'chol Zos L'chota Eov B'sfosa about halfway down? Did we do about Bikish Eov Lafech Ka'ara Al Pia? You wanted to deny everything.
I have a mark in my Gemora.
Oh,
about
where?
Toras Rabbi Birnbaum. It's 4 words from the end of the line. 2, 4, 6, 8. There's a square brackets with the word Eov in. The Eov.
Oh, we got all that far there. Okay, all right. Yes, all right.
That's
Okay, that's right. Basically, this is okay. That's very helpful. Okay, a few lines later. Thank you very much, Avrami. So basically, sorry, Tazayin Amud Aleph. Okay. Yeah, Tazayin Amud Aleph. Basically, what we sort of the Gemara is grappling essentially with the central question of whether or not Eov actually stayed strong in his emunah, or he came to at least question his faith. Rava says that he didn't sin with his lips, but he sinned in his heart, and he tried to suggest that effectively there was no Hashem decides who's a tzaddik and who's a rasha. It's not up to the person themselves, which of course exempts, as Rava says, that exempts everyone from judgment. That was the thing, and the response to that his friend said to him was, "What do you mean? It's true that Hashem created the Yetzer Hara, but Hashem also created Torah Tavlin. Hashem also created Torah, the ability to rise above it through the Torah." So then the Gemara carries on, Dorash Rava. So Rava expounded. What does it mean? It says in the pasuk, "Birkas Oved Olai Tovo," which means the bracha literally means the forlorn one who's lost, comes to me. And I would make the heart of the widow rejoice with joyous song. Birkas Oved Olai Tovo. What did he used to do? He used to steal a field from orphans. He would improve it and then return it to them, So he did a good thing here. So So that's this seems to be a positive thing that you did. And I made the heart of the widow rejoice. Wherever there was almana, when there was a widow, the Lovan would marry her. He used to place his name upon her. In other words, she could use his name. And they would come and they would marry her. So in other words, that was something he did in order to something, again, another sort of good thing that Eov did. There's a question really. The confusion about this whole sugya is what side of the fence Rav was taking, because this could have puts it the other direction. Rav was saying, well, he tried to deny, he did this, he did that, and then all of a sudden he brings in these things that seem to be positive about Eov. So that's really the question. This is praising Eov. There is, I think there is something there. I'm not sure how it was. There is something here, I think, about how this is a continuation of before. Let me just see. I've got written something here. I'm not sure. Something about there's something here about Eov having to. Eov went through a process where he did all these positive things. Maybe it means he should have learned from them. Perhaps he should have taken some messages from them. Could be either way. Rava, generally speaking, seems to take the line that Eov did the wrong thing, or at least through most of this sugya. Rashi says, he thought he would lose his field. He would say that he was his relative. He would speak on her behalf in order to marry her off. So he would fulfill all these good acts. And then we say like this: Eov in Perek Vov says, if only my anger could be weighed, my trauma in the scales, Yisu Yachad, they should be born together. Omar Rav, again, this is changed to Rava again. Omar Rava, Afra Lepamed Eov, this is dust in the mouth of Eov. In other words, that's a phrase. Afra Lepame is a phrase, you can't speak that way. I think it's a phrase that's still used today. It's like saying, how can you even dare you speak such words? Rabbi, is there a servant that rebukes his master? Now Rashi says, sorry, I skipped a line. That's what it is. It's as if he's saying that it's like he's talking to a friend. Rashi says, he's speaking in front of the Shekhinah, like a person rebuking his friend or arguing with his friend. Like we should weigh up who's obligated to whom, who is chayav l'chavera. That's what's going on here. And the really very, very interesting thing about this particular posuk is everyone knows the famous story lahavdil of that Elie Wiesel tells, where they had this trial in Auschwitz, right? And this is really what Eov is saying from a position of pain. Lu shakol shakel kasi v'hosti b'oznai let yisu yachad. He's saying, let's debate in that way, which is quite frightening. It's like a precedent for this idea of weighing up on the scales. Who is and that's Rava's response. Rava says this is you can't say that. Afra l'pumei de'Eov. How can you say such a thing? This is what's being represented here in a way. This idea, as Rashi says, let's come and evaluate who's obligated to whom, right? So we'll see though on the next Omad a very, very important line about statements that come from a position of pain and suffering, right? Because it's very, very important to this whole sugya. The Gemora carries on. There was an arbiter between us. Yoshes Yoda al Shnei placed his hand on both of us. Again, Rava says, earth, dust to the mouth of Eov. Rabbi, is there ever a servant who rebukes his master in this way? There's a covenant cut for my eyes, and I would not reflect on a basula. Rava says, now this is changed in the Bach. The Bach changes to read as follows: he in others lo yastakel. He wouldn't look at others because it says a moesbona. Would not look at inappropriately on a basula. He would look at others. Avram Avinu, this week's parsha, even on his own wife didn't look. Behold, I know you have beautiful format, implying he didn't know her beforehand. So this is again an example of where we have a situation again where there's Eov effectively says the Rava again takes the line that there's something negative about Eov's behavior, and certainly when compared to Avram. He says that as the cloud disperses and goes away, so too those who descend to the pit should not rise up. Here we see that Eov even denied Tchias HaMesim because he says those who go down to the Sheol will not rise up. Who shattered me in the tempest or the whirlwind, and increased my wounds for nothing. Omar Rava says there are different gersas, but it's changed throughout consistently to be Rava. Eov Basra Choraf. Eov basically blasphemed through a sarah, because he used the word the word shattered me through the whirlwind. Or Basara Heshivu. And they responded to him through the Sarah. Basara Charaf, through Hashem responded to him through the whirlwind. Basara Charaf, he blasphemed, he scorned through the whirlwind. He beat me with the Sarah through the tempest. He said in front of Rebbeinu Shalom, Shema Ruach Sa'ara over Lefanecha. Maybe there was a whirlwind that passed in front of you. And maybe you made a dip, you mixed up Eov and Oyev, enemy. You mixed up one letter, and that's why you punished me. Maybe you made a mistake. He says, maybe you may be confused. You got confused by the whirlwind. That is what Eov says to Hashem. And Hashem responds, Basara Hishivu. He responds through the whirlwind. The Pasuk says, and he says, and Hashem responds to Eov through the Sarah. Now you need to understand this because this is the turning point. Okay, so Perek Lamed Ches and Sefer Eov is the turning point. Up to Perek Lamed Ches is Eov debates with his friends. They suggest maybe it happened to you because of this. Maybe we did something previously that you've been punished for. Whatever, they all have their theories and suggestions, and he rejects all of them. I think, yes, I think that none of them stand. And then it says, Vayan Hashem es Eov min hasara. Hashem responded to Eov himself through the world. So now Hashem gives his own response. And Hashem's response to Eov begins in Perek Lamed Ches and ends in Perek Mem Aleph. So it's a very long response. And we're going to get from here, from the Gemora, the essence of what the response is. Now, it's a bit difficult to discern from the Gemora because the Gemora goes through a series of specific examples. So as we learn through this Gemora, you have to try and get to the heart of what the response is. You'll see as we go through, just bear that in mind as we go through the next Gemara. So Hashem answers Eov min hasara. He says like this: Gird now like a man, like a warrior, your loins. I will ask you, let me know. Hashem said to him, I create many hairs in a person, and every hair has its own follicle. 2 hairs can't nourish from one follicle, one root. If 2 came from one root, the light of a person's eyes would darken. So I don't make a distinction between guma and guma, between one follicle and another. You're going to tell me I'm going to make a distinction, I'm going to make a mistake between Eov and an Oyev, between Eov and an enemy, right? How am I possibly going to make that mistake? I'm so precise in terms of every hair being from a different root. Obviously, I'm not going to make a mistake between Eov and Oyev. And he carries on, Mi Pileg L'Shetef Tala, who fashioned a channel for the torrent of water. I created many drops in the clouds. Every drop has a channel for itself. You don't have 2 drops coming out of one channel. Because if you had 2 drops coming out of one channel, they would make the land dissolve. And it won't produce fruit. I don't make a distinction. I don't make it mixed up between the drops. Between different Eov and Oyev, I'm going to make a mistake. Firstly, how do you know that Tala means a channel? He made a trench like a base of Saim to seed. And away. No, that's the next bit, isn't it? Yes, that's the next bit. Sorry. So anyway, you see that a tala implies there it's a trench for planting seeds. It's a trench for planting seeds. Yeah, I mentioned on Thursday night a kliyokar on Parshas Noach who says that that effectively the ownership of the Dor HaMabul is, what did they do? What was the main thing they did wrong? The main thing they did wrong was Gezel. What is Gezel? So Gezel is basically overstepping the boundaries into someone else's territory. That's what you do. You take something that isn't yours. You're misappropriating. You're crossing the boundary, right? What's the punishment? Midah keneged midah. Rain, when it falls normally and properly, every single drop is distinct. Yeah, okay, the wind affects that, of course. But if it was no wind, every drop is distinct. That's this Gemora, right? Every drop has its own channel. What happens in the mabul? Hashem mixes it all up. And that creates the mabul because the rain gets mixed into one waterfall. And that's the midah keneged midah. You with me? It's fascinating, right? Beautiful kliyaka. And that's why the mabul is the same thing. They mixed everything up. And by the way, he doesn't quite express it in this way, but it's l'cha'ora obvious that it's the same with the other averos. Avodah Zarah, Gilui Aroyas, right? The level of immorality. It's the same thing. It's all a mixing of the way things should be. So that's anyway, that links, I think, beautifully to this Gemora where Hashem says, everything is in one channel. The rain comes, every drop is by itself. Every drop is by itself. That's how, of course, I know how to distinguish between Eov and Oyev. Yeah, the derech l'chazis kolos, and the way there of kolos harbib, and the path for thunderclouds is many sounds. Sorry, the derech l'chazis, and the way for the path for clouds is kolos, is thunder. Harbib kolos barasiv ovim, created many sounds, many voices, many noises. Barasiv ovim, the clouds. V'chol kol v'kol. Yeah, that's so. I mean, yes. So this is the way for clouds. The path for clouds is thunder. Yeah. Harbe kolos barasiv ovim. I've created many kolos in the clouds. So every sound has a pathway by itself. There's a small one here, Jeremy, but I don't know if that will help you. You're looking for a large one. Okay. Every sound has a path by itself. So you don't have two sounds of thunder coming out of one pathway. Because if you have two sounds coming out of one pathway, they would destroy the entire world. I don't make a distinction. I don't make it mixed up between different sounds. I'm going to make a mistake between Eov and Oyev, between Eov and Oyev, same thing, right? Third example. Let's see Rashi. We did that thing. Way up who's chayav to whom. Menasara lashon seah, hair. Kediktani harbi nimin barasi bodom. That's the reference to hair. Reading Sarah as seah as hair. Metashtish as osis to make the land like cement. Right now, last line on the Omid. Jeremy, we're right in the last line of the Omid on Tes Zayin Omid Aleph, the very last line. Hayodato eis ledes yale sela. Do you know the time of giving birth of the mountain goats? Choylel ayolos tishmar. Do you the time of the gazelle? I think it's the time. The labor pains of the gazelle. Tishmar, do you guard? So he says that the Hashem is saying like this: Yala zu achzoras now. This yala, this mountain goat, is cruel to its children. When it bends to give birth, it goes to the top of the mountain. So the child shall fall off the mountain. The young goat or the gazelle shall fall off the mountain, right, and die. Hashem says, I prepare for it an eagle that accepts it in its wings. And places in front of it. If it came 1 minute early, 1 minute late, it would immediately die. I don't make this between one moment and the next. I don't make a mistake between Eov la'oyev neschalefli. I make a mistake between Eov and Oyev. The labor pangs of the ayala tishmar. I protect you. I protect ayala zu. This ayala, this gazelle, this ayala, rachmot tsar, has a narrow womb. When the time when it bends to give birth, and I prepare for it a darkum, which Rashi says nochash, a type of snake. Shemakisha b'veisarechem. Makisha's noshchet bites it b'veisarechem in the womb. And what happens is when it's dropped, it softens the ledes and it gives birth. It's too early, 1 moment too early, 1 moment too late, Miyad Mesa would immediately die. I don't make a mistake between one moment and the next, because this can only work if it's exactly precise. Am I going to make a distinction between Eov and Oyev? Yeah, that's not possible. Rashi's mistrapim means lashon rifyo, like it means to soften. Okay, so there's how many examples? 5 examples. 5 examples. Now, let me ask you the following question. We understand what the Gemora is saying, right? The Gemora is saying that Hashem responds to Eov and says, your claim to me is maybe you make a mistake. Maybe you made a mistake. Maybe all of this has happened to me. It was just a mistake. You got mixed up. Yeah, you got the letters wrong. You said you meant to send it to the enemy, the Oyev, and you sent it to Eov by mistake. Never for me. I've got a bad name. And all these agents of destruction, all these problems that I've suffered was just a mistake, right? Now let me ask you, what is the response? What is Hashem's answer? What is the real answer? What is the nakuda? What is the key point? And that's what you have to get from this Gemara.
Mistakes.
Okay, but there's something else as well. Yeah, I don't make mistakes, 100%, but there's something deeper. What is the essence of it? Pardon?
Hashgacha pratit.
Yes, hashgacha pratis, absolutely. That's right. But where are you going with that? Meaning, okay, hashgacha pratis. But how does that answer?
It's not only about general, it's about details.
Pardon?
השגחה פרטית is about every little detail.
Every detail, yes. But come back to the original question, right? What's Eov's problem? Why am I suffering? I'm a righteous man. So how's Hashem responding to that? That's the big problem. That's the question of Eov. Say for Eov, right? Why should this happen to me? What did I do wrong? So what's the answer? What's Hashem's response?
It's greater than him.
Pardon?
It's greater than him.
It's greater than him. Yeah.
Hairs, raindrops.
It's greater than him. And
Corn,
yeah, that's right. That's right. The essence of the response, and if you look, it's much clearer if you look actually through those whole Perokim and Sefer Eov, which are just unbelievable. Just literally open an English Tanakh, or Hebrew if you like, and just go through those psukim of the Perek Lamed Ches, Perek Lamed Tes, because it's absolutely remarkable. Basically, Hashem says to Eov, his response is, "Du weißt gar nicht." That's his answer. You understand nothing. Nothing. There's nothing about creation. The mysteries of creation are completely beyond you. Do you understand? That's where it's phrased. Hayodato eis ledes yale sela. Do you know the time when the mountain goat's going to give birth? Do you understand? Mi palag l'shetef tala. Are you involved in fashioning, the channels that channel water? Yeah. So it's, of course, on a basic level, Hashem is saying, I don't get mixed up. I know exactly what I'm doing, and everything has a reason and a purpose. But the deeper message is not just that everything has a message and a reason and a purpose, but that we cannot understand why that happens. So that's the ultimate response of the answer, quote unquote, of Sefer Eov, which is you will never understand the way of Hashem, which, by the way, of course, is, and by the way, Shlomo, that doesn't contradict what you said, right?
I'm thinking about it. Yes, he said, I know about you, I know every detail about you, but sometimes, not that I don't care, there is other stuff.
Exactly.
But I didn't forget about the letter Aleph. I still remember
exactly. 100%. It's all wrapped up together. Hashgacha pratis means, on the contrary, Hashem says, I'm intimately involved in every single aspect of this world. And the proof is all these incredible things that transpire in the world, where if they weren't just so, the whole theory about the positioning of Earth, the Goldilocks theory, right? They call it the Goldilocks theory, right? If Earth, the world that we live on, right, was a tiny bit, you know about this? Was a tiny bit to the left or a tiny bit to the right, everything will fall apart, right? It's the Goldilocks theory. It's just right. It just happens to be that Earth is exactly close enough to the sun and not that's the Goldilocks, right? Not too cold, not too hot, right? It's close enough to the sun, but not too close. This positioning, the precision of creation, that's Hashem's response in the sense that you cannot understand anything. And this is the same answer as HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives to Moshe Rabbeinu in Parshas Kisisa, right? When Moshe Rabbeinu says, Hareini no'es terachecha, so what does Hashem say? Lo yirani ha'adam v'chai. No one can see me and live. Yeah, v'risas acharoi. Yeah, you can see my back. You can see something. Once something has happened, you can think, now maybe I understand why this happened. That's the maximum you can see. But lo yirani ha'adam v'chai, no one can see me and understand fully why I live. And I often think of this Gemora and the way it's phrased through the majesty of creation, because that's how the response is. That's the beauty of these Perokim. Hashem turns around to Eov and says, look around you, learn from creation, learn from the world. So I think of a very famous interview. I don't know if it's famous, but I've seen it, so it must be famous. David Attenborough once gave. David Attenborough is an agnostic, right? I don't know if he's an atheist, but he's what they call an agnostic. Yeah? He says he doesn't know about it. So they asked him, you spent your entire life devoted to the majesty of the natural world. How is it? Do you not have some feeling of belief that comes out of your exploration of the natural world? So his response is very fascinating. He said, people always say to me when they want to prove about the existence of the Creator. So they talk about the beauty of the majesty of the lion, or the the Serengeti and the whole thing and whatever it is, the beauties of creation. Yeah. But he says, but I say to them, I talk about the worm in Guinea. There's a worm apparently in Guinea that exists only to bore its way into a child's eye. There is no other known function for this worm. That's the only function it has, this little parasite. I mean, there are many number of parasites there. They don't seem to have any other function other than that, than a destructive function. So that's why I turn around to them and say, why don't you look at that instead of that? Now, what's the answer to that argument? Yes, the answer is this Gemora, right? That it's unfathomable, the way and how and the balance in creation and why things need to exist within the natural world, we cannot understand. and that's it's just this is I just find that quite seen in that light quite remarkable. Yeah. Okay, let's carry on. Any questions on there? Okay. So the three other examples were for hairs that grow through one follicle, right? Every hair goes through an individual follicle. If they didn't, it would cause immense damage to a person. The next one was the rain. The rain falls in a single. Each raindrop falls through one drop, right? And then thunder. So thunder, each thunder is one single thunderclap comes by itself, has its own channel. And again, if they all got mixed up, then then the world would be destroyed. So Hashem is saying in all these cases, I'm able to distinguish between each individual ones. Obviously, I'm not going to mix up Eov and Oyev. That's what the Gemora says. Yeah. Eov lo b'das yadaber. So the Apostle says in Perek Lamed, Eov does not speak with knowledge, or devorav lo b'haskel, and his words are not with intelligence. Omar Rava says, Mikan, from here we see the person is not held responsible, accountable for what he says through pain, at the time of pain. Now this is remarkable. Look at see Rashi first. Second line in Rashi, Lischayev, to be guilty, on speaking harshly because of pain and affliction. To come, because he says, the Apostle says he does not speak with knowledge. It doesn't say he doesn't speak with wickedness. Ella lo bedas. It means, in other words, what it means, he doesn't speak. He speaks through lack of knowledge. Yeah. Yeah. So in other words, what is the Pasuk saying? It can't be held. Rava is saying that he shouldn't be held accountable for what he speaks, the way he speaks, the manner, the harshness of his tone, because it's coming from a position of pain. There's a couple of remarkable things about this. Number one, we saw on the previous Amud that Rava consistently says that Eov did this wrong and this wrong and this wrong and this wrong, and he tried to excuse the whole world from judgment, and there was a blaspheming and all sorts of things. And then suddenly Rava turns around and says, Eov lo b'das yadaber. He's absolved of being guilty for what he said because he came from a position of pain and Yisurin. And you can't judge a person when they speak things like this when it comes from Yisurin, it comes from pain and affliction. So firstly, you see, if you bear in mind the fact that it was Rava on the previous onwards, you see the balance that Rava has here, even though he is calling him out for what he considers to be incorrect statements. You're not allowed to say A, B, C, D. He shouldn't have said A, B, C, D, E. And then in the same breath, Rava can say, but 1 second, we can't hold him guilty for what he said because it was from a position of suffering, right? It's an amazing thing, to be able to hold both of those in your mind. Sometimes that's what we need to do. Sometimes we need to have to say, this is not allowed. You can't say that, but you can't necessarily hold the person guilty because of the fact that it's like an onus. They're speaking from a position of not of sound mind, but of lo b'das because of their suffering. And also the reason why this Gemara, these few lines are so powerful. And of course, by the way, that the fact that the Gemara positions it here, directly after we've explained what Hashem's response is. Hashem's response is, you cannot understand my ways. And the Gemara then says, okay, so what about Eov? Well, Eov himself can't be held guilty because of the fact that he was suffering so much. And of course, these words are incredibly powerful because of this is really the source for those who, the idea that that those who have been through immense suffering, which we should never know, you can't judge them for things they do or say. It's very hard sometimes but that is the reality. One has to always remember that people say things from a position of suffering. It doesn't reveal often, the essential person. It comes from a position of pain. I've experienced that in my rabbinic career. Unfortunately, many times, people who have suffered or lost a very close relative in tragic circumstances or something like that. They'll often say things, I'm not talking about blasphemy, but they will say things which are just they're expressions of pain. And the greatest example, of course, we have of this, those who question their faith after the Holocaust as well, why you can't judge a person who has been through such immense tragedy that we can't even fathom. And that's the source of that, is this Gemara. But remember that it's also Rava who says, this is not right. Sometimes you have to say there's certain statements you can't say, even though, you can't judge the person. Yeah. 3 friends of Eov heard all this evil that came upon him. Each man came from his place. So we go back now to explain a bit about these friends of Eov. These were the names of the 3. V'yavadu Yachtov. And they got together to come to mourn with him, to comfort him. What does it mean they came together? They all came in one gate. And the Tana taught between each one of them were 300 parasim. So how did they know? How on earth did they know that Eov was suffering? So Ikadomi, some say some say they had the crown. Ikadomi, some say Ilani they had trees. They given them a chamshi when they withered of Yudoy, they knew. So the first explanation is like a very, very early form of WhatsApp. Look at the Rashi, Klila Havalu, Kasarim. They had these crowns of a chol keseh shlesh partzufim. On each crown there were 3 faces. Each one had his name engraved on the image. And when affliction came on one of them, right? What happened? Partzufa mishtana. The face would change. Similarly with the trees, they would they would wither. So you see, that's how they knew. That's why I said it's an early form of WhatsApp. You understand? The face would light up, and they would know there's a problem with one of their friends. That's how they discovered there was a problem with Eov. Amar Rava says, when people say, the phrase goes, either a friend like the friends of Eov, or death. Now, these are the only real friends you have are friends like the friends of Eov, because they were real friends. They were real friends. Rashi says, if a person doesn't have friends like this, it is better for him to not survive. It's interesting that Eov has a family. He still has a wife. Remember, his wife challenges him. His wife says to him, give up. But Eov needs the friends, and the friends comfort him. Lahavdil, it's a bit like an early form of almost like they're providing the therapy that he needs. He goes to these 3 trusted friends, and he says, I need you. It's not a shame to need people. That's what Eov, that's the whole sefer, right? Even though ultimately they're not actually able to help him, but they're there for him. And they're praised as his friends because they're there for him. They do their best to help, and they support him in his time of trouble. This was at the end of Parshas Bereshis, the background to the Mabul. We'll see why this is relevant to here in a minute. Where it began when the people, where it happened when the people increased on the land, the bonus will do lahem, and they had many daughters. Rabbi Yochanan says, when it says they had many daughters, that means there was there's increase in population came to the world, simply because when the daughters would generally would have children before women would have children before a man. They were urged better than a man will marry younger or whatever, and therefore there's an increase in the population. He says it means strife comes to the world. And there's a marshal here who explains why that is. Something about men. Design on the base. I'm not sure. It's something to do with the fact that I think it's connected to the Gemora that says that basically men get the wives they deserve or something like that. What? Strife. Yeah, because of the it's based on the Gemara in the Masalach Gimel. One second. Another Rabbi Shlokish take on the same thing. Yes. Yeah. That's right. That's right. It's related to this Gemara, where the Gemara says, if a person merits, then she's helps him. If not, she's opposite. She's keneged him, his wife. So oppositional to him. So that's what it's referring. That's the idea of where the potential for strife. I think there's a marshal which says that. Omalei Reish Lakish Rabbi Yochanan, and Reish Lakish challenges Rabbi Yochanan, says the Didachon Yud Amr should say Ravia Bal Olam, that they increase population. If that's the case, so why wasn't the daughters of Eov doubled? Why they should be doubled? If it's the case that it's a positive thing, the daughters being born. So at the end of the day, if you look at the end of Sefer Eov gets back everything he lost and it's doubled. So they says, if so, why wasn't he doubled? Why didn't he get double daughters? Yeah, like 6 instead of him. Even though they weren't doubled in names, they weren't extra numbers of them. They were doubled in beauty. So at the end of the day, Eov gets back everything he lost and it's doubled. And he has 7 sons and 3 daughters. One was called Yemimo. The second was called Ketzia. The third was called Karen Hafuch. Yemimo shows a domini yom. Yemimo, she was called Yemimo because she was similar to the day. Ketzia show a reicha nodev Ketzia because I said a sweet fragrance like a Ketzia. Karen Hafuch Omer Deri Shila Shadoma la Karna de Keresh. She was doma too, similar to a Karna de Keresh. What's a Karna de Keresh? Like the horn of a Keresh. Keresh is a type of wild animal, and its horns blacken like dye. So the Gemora asks, they laughed at this in the West. Karna de Keresh Kusahi. The horn of the Keresh, it's a negative thing. It's not something positive. If it causes blackens things. Like the saffron of Rishka, this saffron which grows in a garden, which is praiseworthy. It's more praiseworthy than other spices, other type of similar type of herbs. When you enlarge your eyes with cosmetics, so this idea of that is what happened, and that is why, and it was all positive. They were all of very beautiful appearance, his daughters, and that's why it was considered to be an increase there as well. Says Rashi, when the daughter was born, because he has children quicker as a result. There's no doubling better than that. Shining like the sun. It's a type of fragrance. Kana de keresh min chaya, that's a wild animal. Kanem ashkir, and its horns black and come out sever like dye. Kurkum de rishka, karkum shel gana god begina, the saffron of the garden, which grows of gan, which a garden saffron which grows in a garden. B'minah shehumu ula mishar karkumin, or min shabasot, whatever. It's more praiseworthy than other types of these types of fragrant herbs or spices or whatever. Now, Rabbi Shimon bar Rebbe, Isyalido le Barta. So he had a daughter. He was upset. Omar le Avua. His father said to him, don't be upset because it's a good thing. Revia ba'al olam increases the population. Well, they have the potential to increase the population more than men. Omar bar kapora. That's right, because another explanation, of course, is that theoretically man can have more than one wife, and that also increased the population. Omei Bar Kapara responded to him and said, "Tanchumin shel hevel nichmei chavuch," a comfort of emptiness. Your father's comforted you. Designing the Bible says, it's impossible the world without males and females. Praiseworthy is the one whose children are boys, and woe is the one whose children are girls. Possible for the world without a bosom, someone who makes pleasant fragrances, which is a tanner. But praiseworthy is the one who is who creates his crafts is in creating fragrances. And woe is to the one whose craftsmanship is as a tanner. Remember, there was a rabbi in some Bnei Brak, where I think he used to say he davened for daughters. It's a bit contradiction to this Gemara, because he says you could choose your sons-in-law, you can't choose your sons. I think that was in a time and place where people could choose their sons. that was his line. Anyway, but either way, this is what the Gemara says here. This Gemara appears in a few places in Shas. This particular Gemara. Just see if there's a Gemara here about this. Maybe. Yeah, I'll tell you about native. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, the Mishnah, the Shachyanim is actually the Mishnah Berurah's Chiddush. It's not a Shulchan Aruch. He says the Shulchan Aruch, I think so. He says it's no worse than having a daughter. He says it's not worse than having something. Anyway, better be careful of how I explain this to one in my house. They're going to be very happy with it. What was that? What did you say? Avram is laughing. All right. What? What was that? No, Shechianu for a girl and Tova makes it for a boy. But the Mishnah Berurah is the one who says it's a chiddush that you make a Shechianu for a girl. I don't think it's in Shulchan Aruch. No, Tova made it for a girl. Sorry, Tova made it for a boy. Shechianu for a girl. Yes. I don't know exactly where it is at the moment. Anyway, as far as I remember, that's how it is. I think it comes in the Mishnah. Just 1 second. Let me just see this a second. Okay. Yeah. Okay. We'll see. Okay. Anyway, the Gemora carries on here and says like this. Kitzanois machlokas Hashem berachas Avram b'koil. Hashem blessed everyone with everything. So this is basically a machlokas tanoim. The different perspectives. My bakol. What does it mean bakol? Pasuk in Chai Sarah. What does it mean Hashem blessed everyone with everything? My bakol. Remeh says, what was the bakol? What was everything? That was the bracha that he didn't have a daughter. Rabbi Yehuda, no, the bracha is that he had a daughter. Achirim say that Avram Avinu had a daughter and her name was Bakol. Right? Rabbi Elazar says that it's Avram Avinu. He says there was astrology in the heart of Avram Avinu. All the kings of the east and the west got up early to his doorway. Rabbi Shimon Chaim says, these are all different shotim as to what exactly it means, the bakol. What was the bracha bakol? There was a precious stone hanging from the neck of Avram Avinu. And he saw it, would immediately be healed. Hashem suspended it from literally the wheel of the sun. It's not the sun itself. This is the celestial cycle or wheel that the sun revolves on. At least from our perspective, we see the sun revolving. Omar Abai says, this is what people mean when they say idli yomo idli katsira. When the day lights up or lifts up, so you see the sun, then people who are sick are also lifted up, right? They also get a healing as a result of this. Yeah. What was that? Yes, it is exactly. Here's another explanation. Esav did not rebel in his time, in his days. Yeah. What? Well, yes. Shalom Arad Esav b'Yomov. Esav did not rebel while Avram was still alive. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Or he gathered his troops against the
What was that?
Yeah, because he's when he died after the first years.
We don't know what the timeline was for.
With what?
Yeah, we never came back from that
Yes,
one.
yes.
Yeah, he Esav did not rebel while he was still alive. We'll see in a minute. The Gemora explains the Gemora explains. How do you know that Esav didn't rebel during his days? The Chilpos says, Esav came in the field and he was hungry, he was thirsty, he was exhausted. The Tana thought, so yeah, Nifta Avram Avinu, that day Avram Avinu died. Vasi Yaakov Avinu Tavshin Shel Adoshim. Avram Avinu made a tavshel, a stewed dish of lentils and nachim esitzchak olive to comfort his father. You're familiar with this. Why lentils? Rashi brings this to Parshas told us. Omri Marova, Mishmei Rabba Mary, Ma'adosh Azu Ein Lo Peh. Just like this lentil has no mouth, Af Ovel Ein Lo Peh. So if the ovel has no mouth. Another pshat Ma'adosh Azu Megalgeles. Just like the lentils are round, Af Avelus Megalgeles, Machzeres Al Boy Ha'olam. The Avelus as well is a circle and it goes round through the whole world. Affects everyone as the circle of life. Might be now what's the routine to comfort Avelim with eggs, because eggs have no mouth, but they're not circular. It's not circular. It's interesting that nowadays it's very widespread to give Avelim eggs, right? On the Sudas Havra. But I don't know, is that people do lentils or not? I don't think they do. Do they do lentils? I don't think they do. Yeah.
That's not really enough minute. They're both round.
No, eggs are not round.
I get they're very good.
They are circular.
But the earth isn't really that round. It's also it's going to be.
Well, that's what the Gemora says. It hasn't got the same round. Yeah. Let's see Rashi. It's Tagninus. Rashi says Chozebek astrologer. You find that in a number of places, by the way, right? This is the whole in this week's parsha, the Brisbane of Basarim. Hashem says, "Same Tagninus shalcha." So Avram Avinu had a reputation as being able to foretell things through the stars, and Hashem says, "It's time to leave that alone. I'll take you above the stars, right?" Meshkimim lepischa, little late some men they all came to his doorway to take advice from him. Idli yoma hukba shemesh kishachamas arachas. The sun lifts up when the sun shines. Idli katzira mekel acholi, and the choli, the sickness is lightened as well. He sits and is silent. Lentils do not have a mouth. As they have the beans, which are many kidneys, sometimes the kidneys come in like a crack. So eggs don't have a mouth, but they're not round like a circle. They're not round like a circle, eggs. Yeah. Omar Rabbi Yochanan says, that wicked man, Esav, right? He transgressed 5 Averis on that day. Bal Nara Marasa, he had a relationship with the Nara Marasa and engaged or betrothed, literally. Nara. Paragas and Nefesh, he killed someone. Kofar Bekri denied the foundations of faith. The Kofar Tchias Mason denied Tchias Mason. Shodas Bechar rejected the Bechar. Bal Nara Marasa, how do you see that he had a relationship with the Nara Marasa? Ksavach was his name, Vayova Yisman Asada. Says Esav came from the field. Chasafos says that that he found her in the field. You see, the word "the field" is the connection between the two psukim. Haragas and Nefesh killed someone. Ksavach says that if he was tired. Chasafos says that Oyna li ki aifa nafshi lahargim. My soul is tired from killing. So you see, there's this word tired. Oyef, right? He denied foundations of faith. Why should I survive? Chasafos says that Zekeli va'anveyu. This is my God, and I will glorify Him. So again, you see the word Zeh. I'm going to die. And he also rejected the Bechora. What does he say? What does he call Tchias HaMesim? Because he says, why do I need the Bechora? I'm going to die anyway. So he rejected the idea of Tchias HaMesim, right? As if there's no future at all. The Shotas HaBechora, he rejected the Bechora. Yeah, Rashi says, the last Rashi in the Amud, he scorned the Avodah Shotas of the Becheres that was with the Becheres, shot Tagma Shal Bezoyan. The word shot is the Tagma Bezoyan of scorning Madua Hekilisani, Tagma Innocent, Ishtatani. So that's why you see that word shot means to reject, to scorn. How do you know that? Says Esav scorned the Bechora. And how do you know Yishmael did Shuv in the days of Ravina? They were sitting in front of Rav, these two Rabbonim, become a nam named Rav. Rav was dozing. Surely you have said, surely you say, Mishmei da Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Yossi called Misa sheyesh bo gevia zu misas shasatikim. Any Misa which talks about the word gevia, says the word gevia, vayigva, that is the death of the tzadikim. Amalei in, he said yes. Well, Daramabel it says that. Amalei said non gevia va'asifa coming on. It's when it says gevia and asifa. That means it's tzadikim gathering in. For Yishmael dichsebe gevia va'asifa. Yishmael it says gevia and asifa. Adoch yitabu Rava. As they were saying this, Rava woke up and sort of like said to them as follows. Omri said to them, Dardaki, children, Hachem Rabbi Yechon says, Yishmael also tshuva b'chai alviv. You know what it says about Yishmael, Gevia and Asifa? Because he did tshuva while his father was alive. Shnem Hozes Veikra, so Yitzchak Yishmael Bonav, Yitzchak Yishmael, his children, buried him together. Mechti Yishmael, Kashish Yitzchak. Since I'm just going through the Bach, since Yishmael was older than Yitzchak, he's like, why does he consider Yitzchak before Yishmael? Yishmael was older. The answer is Yishmael not tshuva of it. He did tshuva, Alver Yitzchak Mekamei. Right, he led Yitzchak in front of him because he did tshuva. He put Yitzchak first. The deal with maybe it's this in the way of their wisdom. Or maybe that says no proof, just because Yitzchak was clever. When it says that Yisuf and Yaakov buried him, why didn't if you're going in order of wisdom, why does the Torah change there? It says Esav and Yaakov should also consider their way of wisdom. Adburi, it must be that when because the Torah puts Yishmael before Yitzchak before Yishmael, it must be Adburi. He led Yitzchak in front of him. Or Mida Adburi, if he led Yitzchak in front of him, he must have done Shuvah during his days. Tell the next Amud. 3 people Hashem gave to them to taste in this world, a taste of the world to come. And these are they. Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. Avram dichsivei Bakol. Avram says Bakol. Yitzchak dichsivei Mikol. This is where it comes from. Bakol. Right? Bakol is Avram. Yitzchak dichsivei Mikol. Yitzchak says Mikol. Yaakov dichsivei Kol. Okay, and that's how you see they all got part of the world to come. Right? If you look at Rashi, there's Bakol Kol. Avram ksiv Hashem berachsav Bakol. Yitzchak ksiv Eichel Mikol. Yaakov ksiv Chiyesh Li Kol. They didn't lack anything at all. V'yesh Oimrim. Sorry, no, we haven't got there. Cool. There were 3 didn't have the Yitzhara, didn't affect them. These are they. Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. Dichsiv b'bakom kol kol. V'yeshem raf David. Some say even David as well. Dichsiv libi cholol b'kirbi. My heart has died within me, literally. Now, what does that mean? Rashi says, Yitzri hora meis b'kirbi. My Yitzhara has died inside me. The other one doesn't list David. He says, Sarah who the komatke. He's just mentioning his pain. Rashi says, the liboy mamashum Yisrael v'omesh shema. Shemeis Bekirim, Merov Toras. He says so much Toras that his heart, as if his heart has died within him. Torah says there were 6. The Malach HaMoves had no ability to rule over them. These are they: Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe, Aaron, and Miriam. Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Dichsivu, Bakom, Kol Kol. It says about them, Bakom, Kol Kol. Moshe, Aaron, and Miriam, Dichsivu, Al Pi Hashem. About all of them, it says Al Pi Hashem. Right? Rashi says, they died through Misas Neshika, through the kiss of the Shechina. They didn't like any covenant. We've seen the covenants of Moshe of Aaron. And we find this covered with Moshe. The next bit. Sorry, that Rashi go on the next bit. So the Gemara carries on. Miriam looks Siv Pi Hashem. Miriam doesn't say Pi Hashem. Miriam Nami B'Shika Neshika Mesa. Miriam also died by Neshika. The Asher Shem and Moshe. Yeah, Shom, I think. Shom, Moshe, the word Shom with Moshe, was Shom with Miriam, and that's why you also know she died with the Misas Neshika. Why does they up Hashem with Miriam? Because it's this not appropriate to say that with regards to Miriam, because she's an Isha. There were 7 who were worms and rotting, had no control over them. The Eluhain, and the are they, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe, Aaron, and Miriam, Binyamin ben Yaakov. And Binyamin ben Yaakov. Those 3 words. Rashi says, they didn't like any honor. If these died through Malach HaMoves, covered. They would be lacking covered. That's the proof that it had to be that they didn't lack any honor, right? Because it says Moshe, Aaron, and Miriam. With Moshe, Aaron, and Miriam, it says It says Al Pi Hashem, right? Al Pi Hashem. That means to say that that the words Bakomikol Kol means they had every honor in the world. If we find with Moshe and Aaron that they died Al Pi Hashem, their bodies did not rot after dying, it would be less of a covered from Aaron. I wouldn't have a full covered if they would actually die in this way. Yeah. So it's actually, sorry, it is going back on the previous case. It's talking about the Malach HaMoves. Rashi's clearly talking about the Malach HaMoves. He's saying the proof that Moshe and Aaron, the proof that Aaron and Yaakov didn't have one control by the Malach HaMoves is the fact that Moshe and Aaron weren't. And Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov had every covered. So it must be they also didn't die through the Malach HaMoves. Now the war carries on and says, the Gemora carries on and says, Moshe and Miriam to Hashem, Binyamin ben Yaakov, Binyamin Omar, did Hashem Mishkan Levetach Alav. With Binyamin, it says that the cherished of Hashem, beloved of Hashem, will dwell securely on him. So Rashi says, Keda Amron Shemesu al Pi Shechina. That the Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, basically, they died. This is a girsa of the Maseres Hashas, where it says, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe, Aaron, and Miriam, Keda Amron. It just says, as we've said. So Rashi explains that girsa, Keda Amron, Shemesu al Pi Shechina, and that they died through the Shechina. Ve'ein roya rima l'shloit b'mishanashik b'nashika b'shechina. Someone who's kissed by the Shechina and dies in that way, it's not fitting that their body should rot. Rima boy mora tefes misakino shamalach hamoves. Where does the rotting of the body come from? It comes from the bitter drop that falls from the knife of the Malach HaMoves. From it, the person dies. From it, the body rots. From it, his face goes disintegrates or whatever. So this effectively is the proof that if they die through the Shechina, that's what it means Kedamon, as we said before. The Misas Nashika, it must be they didn't rot either. This is how we are expounding it. Binyamin will dwell securely on the reliance of the closeness, the belovedness of the Shechina, which is the connection and the idea of them not being ruled over with the not having the Rimah and the Tolea not being able to rule over him. Yesh Omrim, and some say Af David as well. The Gemara says that David also says, my flesh will Yishkon Levetach will dwell securely. Again, the same thing, my flesh will dwell securely. He was asking, he was davening, he was tefillah, he was asking Hashem, may my flesh rest securely. There were four who died only through the bite of the Nachash. Rashi says, it's not the bite, it means the advice. The advice of the Nachash, Rashi says, right? They wouldn't fit him to die. There was the Gezerah of death and all the generation of the Rishon, because the advice of the Nachash, that you see that in these psukim, it means to advise. And these are they: Binyamin ben Yaakov, Amram Avi Moshe, Binyamin son of Yaakov, Amram the father of Moshe, Yishai Avi David, Yishai the father of David, Kilov ben David, the Kulu Gemora. They're all just to receive tradition and Gemara. Labar me Yishai Avi David, apart from Yishai Avi David, where it's explicit pasuk Mefarish Bekrot, says clearly in the pasuk. The pasuk is Amosha ben Vesamosa Som Avshalom Tachas Yoav al Tzava. Amosa Avshalom placed instead of Yoav over the army. Amosa ben Ish. Amosa was the son of a man, Shmo Yisra Yisraeli. His name was Yisra HaYisraeli. Ashabo el Avigal bas Nachash, Achos Tzruya. In relation to Avigal, son of daughter of Nachash, Achos Tzruya, the sister of Tzruya, Aim Yoav, the mother of Yoav. Chi bas Nachash, she was Avigal, the daughter of Nachash. Bas Yishai, she was the daughter of Yishai. And their sisters, Tzruya of Avigal. Rashi says, "B'nei Yishai," because the sons of Yishai, they had sisters called Tzruya and Avigail. Ela, rather, what does it mean? Bas Nachash, Ela bas Misha Meis Bitcha Shel Nachash. She was the daughter of the one who died through the Eitzah of the Nachash. And the only reason for her dying was because of the Nachash, the Chet of Adam HaRishon. That's the famous Gemara. There were four who never sinned: Binyamin ben Yaakov, Amram ben Moshe, Yishai Avi David, and Kilov ben David. Sorry, not her. I mean her father. Sorry, Yishai was one of those four. Hadron Roch b'nei Shutfin. So next week, Be'ez Hashem, we will start the next Perek of Lo Yachpar. Well, it was worth finishing. Sorry for doing a bit of Daf Yomi today, but it's good to complete the Perek in one go, so we can start the next Perek next time. Okay, thank you. All right, have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.